All right, so I had this guide be requested, a guide for new players. A lot of the information that had come out previously is still pretty good. I think it still holds up pretty well. But this was requested for patch number 3, and of course, as I go to record this, patch number 4 is actually out. How does that change things if you're a new player who doesn't have all the weapons unlocked, doesn't have all the Arcana cards unlocked? You're looking to get your first win. How do you do it? What kind of tips do you have? So I wanted to go through each of the weapons, talk about the boons, the gods, the arcanas that I would use, and yeah, just kind of some general tips for the aspect. So we'll start here with the aspect of Melinowi on the staff. So you got to keep in mind with this, when you don't have the other Nocturnal Arms upgraded here, or unlocked rather, you're not going to be able to upgrade these as well right off the bat. So you can kind of forget about any bonus that you would normally have and just think of this as the base kit for the staff. Well, if it's the base kit for the staff, what kinds of things do I want to do? There's really two options here. The optimal method for getting as much damage potential, that kind of thing, as possible is going to be going for something like Aphrodite on the attack. And it's really going to come down to the hammers. If we look over here at the hammers, by the way, newest patch, the skull is missing here. Kind of interesting. But if we look at the hammers, there's going to be a lot of things that affect your basic attacks. You'll see Rapid Thrasher here, attacks are 50% faster. This one's going to add 30 power to attacks, which is really, really going to impact your regular attack more so than your Omega attack. Let's see, we go to Extending Wallop, which is okay. Deals a lot of damage to distant foes, can be alright. And Mirrored Thrasher, which now has been changed, you attack twice, but it's going to use more magic. This one used to be very, very beneficial for your regular attack. It would instead make you take more damage. Now it's going to be harder to use with the regular attack. So there's been a bit of a nerf here to the regular attack build, but this is still going to be very, very effective for the Omega attacks. And you'll also notice lots of other good things here for the Omega attacks, like Cross Cataclysm, even Vampiric Cataclysm, quite good. And these other ones that we mentioned still apply to it. So what does a build look like with just the regular attacks? Well, it's based on those hammers. If you get into hammers that are going to let you attack really fast, get plus 30 damage, that kind of thing, with your regular attack, maybe attack twice now. We'll have to see how that feels with the latest patch now. It's going to let you use something like Aphrodite, which is going to give a huge damage boost, right? And if we go and we take a look at Aphrodite, regular attacks are 80% more powerful with common boons. So if you get this into rare, you get this into epic, you upgrade it with palms, this is tons and tons of extra damage on your regular attack. The plus 30 flat damage now in combination with this, very, very huge on the hammer, right? Yeah, it's just one way you can build, and it's a very, very simple play style, right? You just have to worry about your attacks. You don't have to worry too much about your magic unless you go ahead and pick that Rapid Thrasher now. Yeah, everything's pretty simple. So I'd recommend you either go that way or you build towards the Omega attacks. So I think for the staff, what you really want to do is just see what hammers are offered. Am I offered the Omega attack hammers? Great, then let's stick with that. Otherwise, if I'm offered regular attack, yeah, let's build towards that. And then your playstyle with the Omega attacks, you can really just use this from a distance as much as possible, right? Keep your distance, play really safe. You're not going to be playing with any kind of time limit, right? You're not going to have your pacts on, your vows on, rather. So you can just keep a distance, shoot as much as possible. Really, really good against bosses. So for keepsakes, what do I recommend? Well, there's kind of two strategies depending on what you want to go with. If you want to lean more into the attacks, Aphrodite's the way to go, right? Just go ahead, pick the attacks. The only problem with this is that you're going to be dependent on finding the hammers later. So if you end up with Aphrodite's attack, but then you're not offered hammers that are really going to benefit that attack, can be kind of painful. You're going to be playing a bit of catch up. So I'd say it's a little less safe to do it that way. But even still, if you just get your regular attacks with the bonus that you get from Aphrodite, it's still going to be pretty strong. You should still be okay. But just acknowledge that you're taking a little bit of a risk, that you're going to need to find those hammers later on. The other way to do it is a little bit safer, and now with the change to actually be consuming magic, if you're getting 2 attacks from the hammer, is to go for a gain boon. And this is what I'd recommend for most players. Start with a gain boon, see what you fall into with the hammers, and then you can always switch to Aphrodite, right? The beautiful mirror in region 2. Make sure you get that attack. So what are you looking for in a gain? If you have Hera unlocked, this is going to require that you've actually been to the surface at least once. Then I think Born Gain is your best bet. Otherwise, I think go for Zeus. Ionic Gain is very, very powerful. If we go and take a look at Ionic Gain, this was recently added in the previous patch. So in each encounter, an Aether font's going to appear that restores all your magic, and it's just got a cooldown. So basically just drops a ball somewhere on the battlefield. You got to run over it, got to pick it up, but it's going to refill all your magic. It's one of the better gain boons, I think, now in this recent patch. Or now we're in patch 4, but in patch 3, I think it's very, very strong. So I would maybe start with something like that. If you get hammers that lean more into the regular attack, then go ahead and switch to Aphrodite. Make sure you target that as an attack. If you don't, if you're still just in that Omega attack range, I would just go with something that's a little more defensive, survivable. Something like the Pin is fine. You can take Knuckle Bones. Really look at my keepsake tier list. There's a lot of things there. You could even go for these Path of Stars upgrades. It's not that crazy. Some money, something like that. But yeah, you can just kind of go with whatever, and then whatever you end up with on the attack, I think is just fine. Now, if we're talking Arcana, what is really important for the Arcana in this setup? Well, you're not going to have 30 Grasp either. And you have to keep in mind how this whole side of things is going to be unlocked. So now that they've shaken up the Arcana setup, these 20 points are about where I would start for most things. So for most setups, I think this is a pretty good start, and it means you're going to want to expand out to the right. So as you're unlocking things, I believe you start with 4 or 9 Arcana cards. I can't quite remember. I think it's maybe 9. And as you unlock these ones on the side, it's going to open up things that are adjacent to it. So I would recommend actually building out to the right. Try to hit the Unseen. Try to unlock the Moon, and then try to unlock the Lovers in it. Make sure that these are activated. I think this is just a super, super, super solid setup. When you have more points available to you, I think what you want to try to target is Artificer and Strength. I would move in that direction, as well as trying to unlock Divinity. And what you should have here is the Huntress. This would be your column once you've got a lot of points. So see, this is 29 Grasp. You're probably going to have to give up a lot of stuff. But this is the direction I would be trying to move. I would be trying to get Divinity active as long as possible. But until then, I think this would be a great 20-point setup. If you've got 22, or you're hoping to activate, just get a bit more damage, activate the Huntress. You could also drop some things like, I think the Swift Runner would be one that would be fine to drop. You could even go ahead and drop the Dodge, something like that, if you wanted some more damage from the Huntress. And I do think the Huntress is a pretty good choice with the Staff. If we're still talking the Staff, you can use that Omega attack, and then just go ahead and use your regular attack quite a bit. You're going to get a lot of damage off of it. You could go ahead and also turn off the Unseen in this particular case, just because you want to make sure that the Huntress is very, very active all the time. But once again, I think you're sort of reliant on hammers. You need to make sure, if you're going Aphrodite, that you get the right hammers, that you want to lean into the attack. Whereas if you're just playing to see what you get, I think you leave the Unseen on. Also a great way to have the centaur. So that's a lot about the staff. I think a great way to start. Let's take a look at the dagger. So aspect of Malinois. I think as well, there's two ways to play this. And it's going to be very hammer dependent. If we go ahead and we take a look at the hammers here, the sister blades, one way that I think is very, very good to play with is hook knives. So your specials pierce through foes and return to you at the end of their path. So you'll notice this one throw, right? It's just 25 damage. It's not that crazy. If you go ahead, you do your Omega, it's like 5 that you're throwing out. Nothing too insane. But when you attack something and come back, it's hard to show here. It feels so good. It feels absolutely amazing. And if you can get something that benefits from backstab damage as well, because I don't believe you're going to be getting any extra backstab damage at the very start of this. Maybe you have like 20% or something when this is at rank 1. So you can still get a little bit of extra backstab damage. But Hook Knives is able to set that off. Very, very safe way to play. You can play from a distance. It's great to be able to throw out your Omega Special and have that come back. And it works especially well. I'm sure you've seen Pan where everything like heat seeks, that's fine. But if you're using the Fury's Arcana card, you're going to get all that bonus damage from anything that's caught in your cast as well. It's just a very, very safe play style. That's why I recommend it for new players. It's super easy to just be able to throw stuff out, stay at a distance, you know, be able to read enemy attacks. I think it's a really strong way. But the thing is, you have to fall into that hammer. There are other hammers that work well with it. Something like Sure Shot Flurry, I think, is very good, right? Sending them all in the same direction. Dancing Knives, hitting a bunch of stuff. Spiral Knives, maybe not as good. It's okay. I think it's still fine. But it's not as good as what you'll see when it's actually on Pan, for example. Yeah, a decent number of hammers that work with the special. It's going to be a slower playstyle, but a very safe playstyle. The other one is just if you end up with stuff that's going to help your attacks. So here we go. Attacks being faster, attacks having more power. You've got attacks damaging more when you hit from behind, your Omega attack, your attack here, right? Lots and lots of things that are built on the attack. I think that's totally fine as well. It's just a less safe playstyle. You're going to be pushing more damage, and you're going to push it faster. That's great. But then what I think you want to target on your special is Hephaestus. So Hephaestus, for anybody who doesn't know, it's going to have this big cooldown, but it's going to deal 400 damage all at once. 400 damage, and you can get an upgrade if we keep looking for this vent effect, Furnace Blast. It's going to end up dealing an additional 300 damage over time. So if you look at that, the vent is going to take 4 seconds, and then it'll deal 300 damage. But during that 4 seconds, you're going to be recharging your Volcanic Flourish anyway. So you're basically pushing 700 damage every 16 seconds at the common, rarity, lowest upgrade, that sort of thing. And the reason why it's so good early on with the knives is it's very fast. There's no wind up. It's just one button like that. I deal 700 damage, and then while you're on that cooldown, you can sit here and mash your attack and do all the fancy things, do your Omega, whatever you want. And then once it's back off a cooldown, again, just boop, another 700 damage. So both very effective play styles, and both that I think you can kind of build towards right off the beginning. So if you want to build more towards that attack, just start with Aphrodite. I think that's still okay. Even if you're just offered hammers that are going to benefit the special, that's all right. You can pick Aphrodite. It'll make things really easy at the start. Then you end up hitting hammers that benefit the special. you don't have anything like the onion that's going to hinder your boon gains. So you've got a wide variety of things to pick. Pretty much any special is going to be fine for you. I think you'd prefer something like Poseidon is very good. I actually think Hestia is very good. Hestia is another kind of whatever pick. You can start with the special or you can start with the attack. They're both fine. I do think Hephaestus is something that if you're going to go for that, like Aphrodite on the attack, Hephaestus on the special, Hephaestus is something you just want to equip in the second region. So get the Surefire. This is very good on the attack, or maybe even want to start with this. You're not quite sure. Yeah, I want some Scorch. Maybe I want this on the special. We'll see what hammers I get. Oh no, I ended up getting attack hammers. All right, I'll pivot to this in the second region. And then once again, you can pivot to something survivable in the third region. Yeah, just something to kind of keep alive. This is another one that I think benefits a lot with the Huntress. You've got the option of turning the Unseen off if you want to make sure that the Huntress is active as much as possible. It's very, very good with your regular special and your regular attack. The thing is, I just think hexes are really good for new players. If you're targeting something like Phase Shift, which is going to be the best. I've got a tier list out for hexes. Moonwater is a great one. You know, take a look at that for recommendations on which hexes to pick, but very applicable to new players. So, yeah, a lot of benefit there. I don't know if there's really anything here that is out of the norm that benefits. I don't think so. I think you pretty much run with the same setup, and then it just becomes a case of, yeah, do I want to ensure the Huntress is on, getting a lot more damage, that sort of thing. This would be one of the things that I would flex out more often with the knives than I would with something like the staff. You don't necessarily need the slowdown during the channel. You might be doing the Omega moves a lot less. The attack charges that very fast, and you'll be doing the special from a distance pretty quickly. Yeah, you don't really need the slowdown effect, although it can be beneficial. So if you're at, say, like 21 grasp and you really want to make sure you're getting this, well, yeah, go ahead and cut the sorceress. Not such a big deal on this aspect. And then we go to the torches. So the torches, once again, I don't know what the effect is exactly at rank 1. It's been so long since I've been there. But you'll see a lot of information. If you're looking for old guides based off of patch 1, people, when they started playing, they'll be like, man, the torches are awful. They feel so bad as a new player. But they have changed a lot since then. So yes, you've got the ability to Omega Special. You can keep these things around you and just sort of move around like this to kill things. Keep in mind, your Omega Special won't be lasting as long as they are here because it'll be a lower rank. And this is just fine. Of course, you can attack during this whole process. But what I really recommend for newer players on this, they have buffed the attack so much. Just hold down the attack button. This attack speed is crazy. The damage is crazy. You can dash while you're doing this. And one of the biggest things is being able to drop the cast during it. So one thing that I always do if I'm playing this aspect, I actually always have the cast bound to the left trigger, but I do recommend moving the cast away from the B button because if you're holding down that Omega attack, like we just saw, if we let the magic charge back up a bit, here we go, I can just drop the cast without losing my Omega attack charge. And yeah, you can still dash while you're doing it as well, right? You can move around, this kind of thing. It's very, very, how should I say, a very balanced weapon, very easy to use. It's got good range, good mobility. Yeah, I would lean into the attack. The hammers aren't such a big deal on this thing either. You can actually whiff pretty hard. I definitely think you want to be looking at things like Sustained Spark is good. Sure, if this is going to use a little bit less magic, it's going to channel a bit faster. That's amazing. Inverted Spark is fine. Anything that says attack, I think, is the way to go. But even if you end up with some of these specials, I still think as a newer player, just build towards the attack. It tends to be better. It's very, very strong. I really think this aspect just does better with the Omega Special after it's been upgraded quite a bit. After you hit like level 5 with it, then sure, the Omega's Special strategy can work a lot better, but I just would not worry about it at all as a new player. As far as keepsakes go, this is another one where I just don't really think it matters what you end up with on the attack so much. So, certain things where you're hitting a lot that have like flat damage are going to benefit. So something like Hestia is a little bit better. Something like Poseidon can be better. The knockback effect I do find quite annoying. I would avoid Aphrodite just because it causes you to need to be closer. Hephaestus as well, because each hit isn't going to get the bonus from it, right? There's a long cooldown. I would avoid that. But Demeter is fine. If you have Hera unlocked, totally fine. Even Zeus is okay. Wouldn't be my favorite. And Apollo, another one that is quite good. So I think I would recommend, maybe grab Hestia or go ahead. You could start with Poseidon, but Hestia is probably the best. Yeah, you could try Poseidon or even one of these if you want to start with it. Or the other thing is something like Chaos here, right? The Transcendent Embryo. Just go ahead and start with some random benefit. It might help you, it might not, but you just see what you fall into. Toss something onto the attack. Don't think too hard about it. Or you can go the other way. You can start with something like Hestia, then pivot into Chaos, right? After you've got your attack established, you can use the file to go ahead and upgrade something. If you want to maybe keep your attack at common, right? Don't rarefy on purpose, and then go ahead and use the file to upgrade. There's so many things you can do. You can use the sash. Again, I wouldn't do it Region 1, maybe Region 2. You can do this for some survivability. The pin is always a good option. You can get more damage. You can get gold. So many things. But really just focus on the attack. There is something to be said. Like if you look at the time, like how long does it take to spend all of our magic? You can see it's kind of mana hungry or magic hungry. It does take a fair bit of time before you're going to run out of magic, but you'll notice a drop-off by the time you hit some Guardians, I think. So do keep in mind, at some point, you would like to have some sort of gain. I think it's the same thing. If you've got Hera unlocked, this is probably your number one. Actually, I'll change my mind a little bit on it. Hestia is very, very good. Your regular attack is going to be able to increase your magic. I would probably actually lean toward Hestia over Hera. I think Hera is fine, and then I think Zeus is also fine for gain boons. But this is maybe the easiest one to think about. If you're new, we can go take a look at Hestia's gain here. So this one, Hearth Gain. So it's whenever your attack or special deal damage, restore 4 magic. So it's not going to count your Omega attack. So at the point that this charges at here, you're not going to be gaining magic back. But after you drop that, and then you've got to sort of rechannel, all of that is going to be giving you 4 magic per piece. So typically what you're going to have in a Guardian fight is you'll have to actually drop away from those Omega attacks to be able to dodge moves for a little bit. And during those times, then you've got to sort of restart with Hestia. And that's when you're going to get your magic back. So for keepsakes, I think that's a relatively good breakdown. Once again, I don't think there's too much to say about this. I would still stick with this setup for the most part. The Huntress, it's another one of these flex things. It's going to be kind of okay. It's going to be really good for those initial attacks and not great for those Omega attacks because it just doesn't affect them. So keep that in mind. When you're going to toggle that on or off. It's a fine one to have, but I wouldn't worry about it too much since you're going to want to be Omega attacking most of the time. Next we got the Axe. So this is going to get bonus attack power and max life as it ranks up. This got changed as well in one of the newer patches. So I'm not sure if this starts with maybe like +5 on each or +10, some base amount. There might be something there. But even at the highest ranks, I think it's very comparable. How much damage does the regular attack do, or how much DPS, I should say, versus the Omega attack? It's actually pretty close. But what really makes the Omega attack so good, you're going to hit in all directions. You're hitting very fast, so you're staggering enemies a lot. You've got a lot more control over your character. And one of the biggest things to do, if you're playing on a controller, so you're holding down X, let's say, as this charges up, you can just sort of walk around, but keep holding X, press A, and you'll dash in that direction. And if you keep holding X, you can still pull off the whirlwind along with that dash. This is going to be your bread and butter move. And with the attack power not being such a big effect, because this is not upgraded, it's just that much more reason to be using the Omega attack instead of the regular attack. It also makes this aspect super, super simple. You don't spend that much magic. The unseen is going to be enough to recharge. You can see by the time it's done, I'm ready to use another one. My magic recharges quite quickly. All you want to do with this aspect is get Aphrodite. 100% of the time, target Aphrodite, go for the attack, make sure you're leaning into those Omega attacks, and then you can do whatever you want. If you want some defensive boons from Hephaestus afterwards, that's fine. Like I said, if you want to do that whole strategy of not rarefying and then try to rarefy later with the file, that's okay. You can use the embryo, you can use defensive things, you can get money, whatever you want in those other regions, but you always want to start with Aphrodite. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about your cast, your gain, your special. Everything else is just a bonus. Once you've got that one boon, your build is pretty much ready to go. I think this is one of the better weapons. I think between the axe and the torches, I think these are going to be your two best weapons for getting your first wins, both on the surface and in the underworld. So that's what I would for sure recommend. This one, I think you definitely want the unseen on, and I think you just don't care about the Huntress. This is like, sure, if you've got 22 points and nothing else to put on, great. But I would never make room for the Huntress in this setup. I think everything else here is very, very good. You know, this is where I would try to be making my way down. Use the Artificer just as a bit of extra bonus. This is one where I think the Sorceress is really, really worth it. You definitely don't want to be taking off the Sorceress here. That slowdown while you're channeling up is going to be amazing because you're going to be doing it all the time. As a new player, you really need the time to see, okay, who's attacking me and where, and then I can dash to kind of get away and move around and maneuver. Also worth noting, when you're playing with this weapon, during this, you can cancel out with another dash if you're in any kind of danger. All right, and finally, we've got the skull. Like I said, kind of weird. I assume it's because the latest patch, we can't actually look at the hammers here. I think this one is going to be the hardest for new players. I think if you're just looking for wins, this is going to be one of the toughest aspects to actually get wins on. Hammer-wise, you generally, I'll say, want to lean into stuff that's going to power up your attacks. We can't look at them now, but there's going to be a few things that are going to upgrade your attacks, and I believe they just changed one of them around as well. But in any case, what it's going to look like most times, you're going to shoot your 3 skulls, you're going to charge up an Omega special, and then you're going to go grab them, okay? This is kind of what you're hoping to have happen. You can dash through these guys, and you're invincible while you're dashing with the Omega special. Now, do keep in mind, during the regular special, you are not invincible. So if I don't charge it up all the way, I am not. I'm also not dealing very much damage. It's really just there to grab those skulls if I really need them. Whereas the Omega Special, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's good AoE. It's worth having a boon still hit it. So you can kind of be split between the attack and the special. I guess you really want both of them to have boons on them. It's not too magic hungry, so I don't think you have to worry too much about a gain boon. But I'm going to recommend something a little bit different for this playstyle. Instead of like, do I lean into just the attack or just the special? Take the best hammers that are there. I would say mostly attack focused, but if there's a special thing there, go ahead, take it. It's totally fine for that Omega special. But what I would focus on as a new player, I would go to Zeus, and I would go for Storm Ring. And this might seem a little strange. Like, well, there's no synergy with casts and the skulls, right? It doesn't really make sense. Well, even as someone who's played with the skulls a lot, I will testify to a couple things. So first of all, as a new player, you might find these skulls a little bit difficult to hold on to. I do still, after playing a lot. It's really easy when Skelly is a stationary target, but it's easy to miss, and you see a skull will just kind of end up hanging out somewhere here. And now I can't do anything from my attack. I might be running from enemies. My regular special is awful, and if I go to charge up my Omega special, it takes a lot of time. Oops. Freaked myself out there for a minute. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. So you find yourselves in these vulnerable positions where I don't have a lot of very useful moves. I can't do a lot. That's where the cast comes in handy. The cast is going to be something that you can always do no matter if you have skulls. It's pretty much instant when you drop it. And just from looking at it, like if you're a newer player and you just look at this, you go, okay, well, 20 damage striking enemies with these lightning bolts, like, is that good? It's very good. In practice, this actually does so much damage. It's crazy how much damage this does. If you upgrade it, it's so noticeable. It's really, really, really effective. And then the other thing is just, I think that this is sort of an awkward aspect to get used to. As far as the shooting and weaving in a special to actually go and grab these things, I think it's nice to just have some extra damage from somewhere else. If you're really, really good at this, like, okay, I've got this rhythm down, I'm shooting, I'm grabbing, like it all feels natural, you can actually get pretty good damage out of it. But I think most people getting used to the aspect, it's a little awkward. When do I special? When do I grab things? When am I shooting? And you tend to lose out on a lot of damage potential. But just dropping the cast down is going to be huge damage potential on lots and lots of enemies. Like I said, I know it might sound a little bit weird, but that's actually the direction I would recommend building. It'll give you something more consistent to lean on as you learn the aspect. So how would I recommend you go about it for keepsakes? Start with Zeus. Get that cast if you can as soon as possible. Try to get that cast. At the very least, Zeus is going to be in the god pool. If you don't get the cast right away, you can get it later. And then when it comes to attacks and specials, it's not really a big deal what you end up getting. This is another one where you can kind of go with just about anything. Keep in mind something like Hephaestus is not going to be as good on the attack because of the cooldown. It'll just work on one skull, and you'll get no effects on the other two skulls, and then you're going to have to wait and recharge, whatever. But even something like Hestia, it's fine on the attack. It's not optimal on the special, right, because it's that flat damage. Same thing with Poseidon, but they're fine. They're still, if they're the only thing offered, you can live with it. You'll have enough damage from the cast as well. It'll be okay. But really just anything that offers percentage, I think, is going to be the best way to go. So Apollo is going to be fine. Demeter, Hera, even Zeus is okay with the Blitz effect. I think Aphrodite is very good on the special, not so good on the attack, but again, it's not even unusable. A lot of times foes will be nearby. It's not like the range on this thing is super, super far. So it's just kind of okay. So that would be my recommendation. Start with Zeus. Then if you're missing something, let's say you're missing the attack, well, maybe you want to equip one of these other gods, do something like Apollo on the attack. Even Demeter, it's fine. Demeter's got some other great boons. If you're missing the special, maybe you go to Aphrodite, something like that. Or you can just sit with stuff that's more survivable if you're struggling with the aspect as a whole. Like the pin, you can go grab some money. The Selene boon, whatever you want, right? Whatever you're kind of feeling comfortable with. And then just whatever you happen to fall into, it's kind of fine. This is another one of these where I think the Huntress can be okay, right? But I don't think it's worth taking off the Unseen. Yes, you can get a benefit if you're shooting with the skulls a lot, an extra 50% damage after using your Omega Special once. It's pretty good, but I think because you're getting so much damage from the casts, it's really best to just keep the Unseen on, make sure that the moon is active on this one. This is actually something that's really, really great with Divinity, if you can make your way all the way to Divinity. I think the Sorceress is an absolute necessity for your Omega Special. You cannot take this off. When you're new and you don't really know about positioning or reading enemy attacks all that well, that kind of thing, it's going to be very, very painful to find where is it safe to actually use my Omega Special. Save yourself the hassle. Just put on the Sorceress. Slow everybody down. It's going to make it way, way, way easier to grab those skulls. And even though I think the Furies is pretty much just a default standard item to have, a card to have active with like any of these, because you're leaning into the cast so much, this might be the most important outside of Death Defiances. This might be the most important card for you to have on. You're going to get a lot of extra damage holding enemies in those casts while you're dropping those lightning bolts on them. So yeah, hopefully this is kind of helpful. Builds for each of the individual weapons. There's so much to talk about. We're well over 30 minutes here with all these. If you do have any questions about anything else surrounding them, particular places in the underground or on the surface that are giving you grief, particular enemies, any sorts of boons or keepsakes or whatever that you're wondering about. It's hard to hit every case because people unlock stuff in different orders, right? So you might not have some of those keepsakes available. You might not have some of those Arcana cards available. Feel free to just, shoot me a message, comment or something in Discord or whatever, asking about, hey, for my particular setup, what do you think would be best for what I've unlocked? How would this help? Be more than happy to answer. But yep. Hopefully this is a little bit of help with your builds across all aspects. If you're new here, starting out in patch number 4 now.